the simple life, the slow life. That's what all this is made out to be. Living on a homestead, raising your own food, growing your own food, having your own animals. But I want to make the case that is far from the truth. And in fact, if you want a simple and slow life, don't take this lifestyle. If you don't want to work hard, don't become a homesteader, because it is far from simple and it is far from slow. There seems to be a larger conversation happening right now online through some other content creators on whether this lifestyle is this simple and slow life. Before we go on, I kind of have to define what simple and slow life means to a lot of people, or what it seems to mean. And that is living life with intentionality and living life in a way before technology started taking over everybody's lives. Now, this may be true in a sense, but overall, to the most truest of definitions, simple and slow, it's far from what this homesteading life is. And in fact, because most people aren't going to have a YouTube channel or a job where they can work from home, most people getting into homesteading are going to naturally have to add all of this responsibility onto their own lives. And in fact, this is one reason why so many people who want to get into homesteading end up failing or not taking on the responsibilities that they were going to originally, because they realize that all of this is way more work than they ever expected. Before I go on, I want to emphasize this point. Farming is additive to your life. It's not subtractive in the way that people think. You think this is going to be a subtractive life, a life where you could just sit down, sit on your porch, relax while you sip your coffee and look over your land and your animals. And don't get me wrong, there are times that you can do that, but most of it is grueling. Most of it is so uncomfortable. Most of it, you're outside in the rain, in the snow, milking your cows, dealing with your animals, because your animals do need attention during those times. And you can't just sit around and relax during a storm. There are times when things blow over. There are times when your animals need extra care and you're outside in the thick of it. Sitting on the couch during these storms isn't always a privilege that you get to have in this lifestyle. I've only been homesteading for about 5 years, and before that, I was in what people would call the rat race, working 9 to 5, having jobs outside of the house where I would have to leave, go home. I worked in restaurants, I worked in retail, I did all of that. And then we started our own business. We are able to take that business and work from home, and that's how we can survive here on a farm. Because a farm, in general, especially on a smaller scale like this, doesn't bring in the finances to be able to pay for itself and pay for your own lifestyle. I know that most people aren't going to be able to make a living off of homesteading, so that means they're going to have some sort of supplemental income. That income might be able to have to be less because you're pulling on so much of your own resources, your own milk, your own beef, and so on. But we still need finances in order to make this farm run, because on a small scale, even on a large scale, actually pulling in an income that is sustainable, that's just the farm, is really difficult. So that leads us to the amount of work that we have to do here. And that's not including all the work that we have to do in the back end. For one, making these videos. For two, running our business. This is just talking about farm work. The work never ends. Fences go down. Just today, I had found a little hole at one of the bottom of my fences where one of my Great Pyrenees were getting out. So I have to find these things and be on top and prepared of these things all the time. There's very little downtime to where we could just hang out. Even if I want to hang out and sit on a swing, I don't find much time to do it. I have to, if I'm sitting there and I'm swinging on my swing and I just want to hang out with my family, it's almost inevitable that as I'm sitting there, I go, okay, there's a problem, there's something that has to be taken care of. I have to remind myself to slow down, because it's not very slow. Let's say you're homesteading with animals. Those animals need constant feed. If the pastures aren't prolific enough to feed cows, then you're gonna need to be able to bring supplemental feed for that. That's not even talking about adding grain to their diets, if that's the route you want to take, because not all cows can sufficiently hold body condition on grass alone. They need, a lot of them, genetically need grain in order to keep a heavy weight. That means you have to go and pick up a lot of grain. You also have to prepare for winter because, well, where I'm at, I have to prepare for our winter that gets pretty substantial. Nothing grows and there's nothing on the ground for the cows to eat. And I have to pay for all of that hay. And in order for me not to have to pay for that hay, I have to go out and help cut hay. These are cool things to be able to do, but it's by far from simple and slow. It's not slow because I'm spending hours cutting down a field, raking it, and then I do it with a friend and he bales it. You're out there for a long time when you might want to be doing tons of other things. These are the things that I am talking about when I say this is not a simple or slow life, but I could hear you say that some of these things that we do are simple. Driving a tractor, milking a cow. Well, not all of the things that we do are simple. A lot of them are highly technical. I personally want to try to AI a cow, my own cows. This is a highly technical skill that people go to school for. Knowing about an animal, let's say a cow, for example, we have to know a lot about a cow's body condition, which is a lot of learning that we have to know about. We have to know about how to be our own vets on hand, not just for the cows, not just for the goats, but for all the animals, even the chickens, especially because people don't necessarily treat chickens because it's another cost that just sometimes isn't worth it. So people will let their chickens die. So you need to be a vet for your chickens also. These are all highly technical skills and tons of people go to school to be veterinarians, which they'll be better than us, but we have to learn all of these things without going to school. And we have to be on top of it. And then not even talking about animals because people will homestead without animals. A garden on any substantial scale that is feeding you, actually feeding you, and you don't really have to go to the store for it. There is so much preparation. There's so much planting. There's so much weeding. And then to go through planting, cultivating, harvesting, canning, that is a technical skill in itself. To plant things that are in time so that you're not overloading yourself. So you get your strawberries then you get your blackberries, then you get a different fruit, then you get your tomatoes, so that you're not canning all at the same time, but you can separate that, is a skill in itself. My point in all of this is that it is simple and slow to go to work, come home, order Uber Eats, and just watch things on Netflix. And then go on vacation if you want to, because you don't have animals that nobody else will come and watch because people aren't going to milk your cows for you. There is a quality difference that the two lifestyles don't have. I'm not trying to scare anybody out of this or say that this lifestyle is so much harder than going to a 9-to-5. Like, there are differences, but my point in bringing this up is that I don't want anybody going into homesteading or thinking that they're going into homesteading and not having a real reality check on what that is. Because like I said before, most people going into homesteading are going to be working a 9-to-5 outside of the house and then also adding this lifestyle onto it, which I think they still should do. But let's not kid ourselves into thinking that this is slowing down. And then to just quickly address some other content creators that I've heard, there's no shade on anybody, but I've heard some other people bring it up and they say this is slow because we get to choose what we're doing. There is a choice in doing this, and just choosing the lifestyle that you want doesn't mean it's slow or simple. A doctor chooses to be a doctor. It doesn't make his life slow or simple. Choice in and of itself and choosing what you want to do doesn't make it simple and doesn't make it easy. And a lot of these other content creators get paid for making content about their farms. So they get to do what I'm doing with you right now, talking to a camera and then going on and doing their farm chores. This makes it a little bit more viable for us to be able to have a farm and make money off the content and make money from our farm and work from home. But not everybody has the skill to be able to talk to a camera, edit on the computer, and publish videos. Nor does everybody want to be somewhat of a public figure making videos and doing that. So again, it's not for everybody. And just because some content creators make a claim and say, this is simpler because I get to choose, it's not the case. This is a much harder life. And one of the things that makes this life actually harder, I think, all of us in the homesteading world really get each other, but nobody else really understands us, because there's a saying, there is no livestock without dead stock. And it doesn't mean that, like chickens, you raise chickens for food, those end up dead because you're processing them. It means if you keep livestock, you're bound to have those animals get parasites, die, many of those things. There's a lot of heartache and tragedy that goes on a farm that people underestimate. I recently have lost my favorite goat to parasite loads because our spring and summer was the most rainfall in the past 50 years of all Tennessee. This caused barber pole to be highly on the rise, and so many people that I hear from have lost tons of goats this year alone just by barber pole worm, just because the weather wasn't right. And then we tried to breed our favorite dog, and she had complications, needed a C-section, and then died because of a C-section. These are constant realities that we are constantly faced with, that the average person going to their 9 to 5 isn't going to be faced with, which just adds to its complexity of our lifestyle. It's not simple to go through death frequently on a homestead, and it doesn't feel slower. It feels sad, and a lot of people want to quit because of it, because of how hard the lifestyle can be. You know, this will be my last point, because I just realized when I was saying this, another really difficult thing is you can go through all of that work, and you can go and plant an entire field, and the weather wasn't right, and you lost the entire thing. All of that work, and nothing was good. I recently had an experience where I just cut an entire field of hay, and we couldn't get the machinery over there in time to put it in rows, and there was the heaviest downpour that never stopped after that. And all that time that we went into cutting this field is gone because none of the hay was usable anymore. Such a constant thing in so many different areas. In fact, one year we raised a bunch of chickens for ourselves, and it was a really hot summer this year, and the summer heat took out an unbelievable amount of our chickens, which was 2 days before process day, which is devastating to go through and spend all that time, spend all that money, and spend the sweat and tears of pasturing your chickens throughout a field, giving them food and water every day, making sure everything's right for them, just to lose an unbelievable amount of them because the weather wasn't cooperative. Again, these are things that we have to go through, which do not make this life easy or slow or even desirable to a lot of people. But that doesn't mean this isn't worth it. Every day, every hardship, I get to look at our young kids and see them enjoying the life of big open property, enjoying animals, getting to learn life skills with the animals, with chores that are beyond just home chores, and all the other stuff it entails, along with bringing in good quality food that we can control almost to the finest of details, and being able to live like this. It does, despite all of its challenges, make it worth it. And for these reasons, I have to say, this is not a simple, nor is it a slow life. If you disagree, let me know down in the comments. I'm really interested in this conversation. Let me know if you found my opinion even valuable in this. I want to hear from you. See you next time. Oh, wait a second, before I go, I actually get this question a lot. How do I make money on my farm? This actually could really help for this video that we've made today in how to lessen your load so that farming is easier and you don't have to work outside of the house as much. Well, not everything has to be done through content creation, and we actually have had a photography business for the past 15 years where we have created marketing photos, helped other people grow their businesses, met with marketing teams, and although we haven't gone to school for marketing, we have developed plenty of skills from our own business to our own hiring of photographers and working within this realm for so long. These are quality skills that we get to bring to the table to this homesteading world to help you be able to find your clientele and grow your, online media presence so that you can have a good logo and good way to reach people, and even help you know what to sell from your farm, because I know what it's like when you first get into this, you don't know what to do. But this is going to be a series that we're going to have going on forward. So be sure to follow, like, and subscribe, because that will be coming. Won't be all the content, but it will be a series. And I'm really excited to share that with you. And if you want to talk about this one in the comments, let me know. See you again. See you later. And for the third time, goodbye.